Hello, welcome to Papa Nick's Music. I am, as always, your host, Papa Nick Lewis. This is like the fourth time I'm trying this beginning. it's, it's a fun day. I am, as always, your host, Papa Nick Lewis, and today we are continuing our Top 10 Favorites series. Today we're talking about our top 10 favorite keyboard players here at Papa Nick's Music. And I have to be honest right up front, it's hard for me to pick. I don't play the piano myself. I've got several keyboards. I've got one down there that's out of the camera shot. I've got one that's up there that's out of the camera shot. I've got one right over there. But I don't play them. I use them as references more than anything else. I use, when I'm recording one of my albums, Give Me a Second, available on all streaming services, and has been for quite some time. I use the keyboard primarily to map out vocal harmonies. That's the main reason why I've always got one nearby. Because I don't play. I can't just sit down at the piano and play a song. And as a result, it's hard for me to pick out the keyboard players that I really like, because I don't have as much of a personal investment in the instrument. I mean, I could talk about bass players all day long because I do play the bass. Over my shoulder here. I don't play it very well, but I do play it. It's easier for me to talk about drummers because I do drum. I don't drum very well, but I do drum, right? I've got a personal connection to those instruments that I don't necessarily have to keyboards. Which means there are going to be keyboard players. There are going to be pianists, organists, synthesizerists. I think these are all mostly piano players. There are going to be some musicians in this listing, and if you are a tried and true, dyed-in-the-wool keyboard player, you're going to be perhaps a little frustrated that I'm picking these as my favorites. The metric I'm going by here is not technical mastery or anything like that. The metric I'm going by is, first off, how much do I notice the keyboard part in that performance on a consistent basis. Secondly, do I like that keyboard part? Do I think that sounds good? Do I think it sounds like something fun and interesting and all of that? And then finally, is it music that makes me want to play along? Is it music that makes me wish I could play the keyboard? Is it music that makes me wish I could be sitting there, even if I'm not playing a piano, playing on my guitar and playing along with that music, right? So that's what I'm going by. It's my top 10 favorite keyboard players from the perspective of somebody who doesn't really play the keyboard. As always, with my top 10 favorites series, in order to be included here, I've got two criteria. Criterion number one is that I really have to like the artist, the work, the whatever it is we're talking about. I have to feel a personal connection to it. I have to value it strongly. It has to be my favorite. But then secondly, I have to own a copy of it. I have to like it so much that I've gone out of my way to purchase a copy of that performer. In this case, that I've actually got an album of that person playing the piano. Also, he said, forgetting what he was saying for a moment there. Also, because this is a top 10 video, the unofficial sponsor of Papa Nick's Music's top 10 series is Schofferhofer Beer. If you like Hefeweizen wheat beer and grapefruit soda, you'll love Schofferhofer. That's good beer. And then finally, we are talking about my top 10, so I've got to talk about the subjectivity notice. We firmly believe one of the guiding principles here at Papa Nick's Music is that there is no such thing as objectively good or objectively bad art. There is only art that I like and art that I do not. And as long as we keep that in mind, this is a wonderful conversation. It's enlightening, it's entertaining, it's fun, and it expands our horizons. It gives us an opportunity to see the world from somebody else's perspective, and that's always good. The conversation only goes off the rails when somebody involved in the conversation insists on being seen as objectively right. So let's not do that. I'm not saying these are the 10 best technical masters of the piano. Don't know why I said it like that. So no. These are my favorites. Okay? You may agree with some of these, in which case drop that comment down below because, ooh, I love building community. You may disagree with some of these. Drop that comment down below. I love to have that conversation. You may have other artists that you think would be worth including after you've heard my 10. You're thinking, well, if he likes those people, he'll really like. Drop that comment down below. I'm always looking to expand my musical horizons. Okay? We ready? Cool. I'm going to have one more sip. Because it's... good beer. I'm not sure what that face was. Anyway. Before I get into the top 10 proper, this week I've got an honorable mention. I'm trying my best to avoid honorable mentions when I'm doing these top 10 favorites. But today, I really have to. If we're going by the metric of this is something that I hear and it has captured my imagination and I really like the sound of it, then I have to include this particular artist. The problem is I don't really know this particular artist. And I'm talking about Peter Wood. Peter Wood is the the piano player who co-wrote Year of the Cat with Al Stewart. And that piano intro, that's Peter Wood. And I adore that song. I adore this whole album. I think the world of Al Stewart. And I love the piano parts on this album, especially on Year of the Cat. But if you don't allow me the opportunity to look it up on my phone, I'm not going to be able to name any other albums that Peter Wood is on, with the possible exception of Time Passages. He might be on that because he did play with Al Stewart on this one, and I've got Time Passages back there. But apart from that, don't really. I'm not aware of the. He was a session musician, so I don't really know what all he's done. So I feel uncomfortable putting him in my top 10. But for Year of the Cat alone, he ought to be there. So compromise is I'm giving him an honorable mention. So honorable mention, Peter Wood. Now, with that out of the way, there are certain things that a pop rock music fan of my age we have to do it. It's contractual obligation kind of thing. There might be some of these instances where you've got a choice. You can pick A or B, but you, by God, better have one of those on there. And if we're talking about virtually any instrument, it seems like we've got to be including my number 10 favorite pianist, Paul McCartney. And for my sample, this is a really bad sample to hold up in terms of visual appeal. We've got the Beatles, the White Album. Yeah, I'm pedantic. I always call it the Beatles. And we've got this because of Martha, My Dear, which I love that song. If you've watched my video where I gave you my top 40 Beatles songs, Martha, My Dear comes in very high on that list. The main reason I had, the main purpose I had in buying a copy of the Beatles when I was in college was so that I could listen to Martha, My Dear whenever I wanted to. That thing is imprinted on my DNA. So yeah, I've got to include Paul McCartney. So I'm putting him here at number 10. Paul McCartney. Number 9. Last week we were talking about soundtracks. And I was talking about how much I love Vince Guaraldi. And I used a pop-up for this because when I was talking about this, the actual soundtrack was the Great Pumpkin soundtrack. But I was talking about this album for a while, and I used a pop-up. So I'm including this, even though the soundtrack to Great Pumpkin is every bit as good an example to use, but I do want to verify that, yes, I do, in fact, have this album. I love Vince Guaraldi. I love the way his piano playing sounds. He's got a very distinctive style. And I love his Peanuts music, but I also love his pre- and post-Peanuts music. Well, pre-Peanuts music. I'm frankly not familiar with anything he did after he hit it big with the Peanuts. But Vince Guaraldi, number 9, love Vince Guaraldi. Coming in at number 8, there are a few musicians that I will always adore if only because they did that one thing that I really, really liked. Peter Wood. Man, I've shoehorned a place for him on this list because of Year of the Cat. Paul McCartney, I got to put him on my list because, well, first he deserves to be on the list, but also because Martha, My Dear. I've got the same thing here with my eighth favorite piano player, who is Richard Wright. And I've got Richard Wright on here because of Us and Them, which is just a glorious piece of music that one of my favorite all-time songs. I love listening to this thing. It just oozes and drips and seeps atmosphere. Oh, I love Us and Them. And I love Dark Side of the Moon just across the board. Fantastic album. But it's mostly on the strength of Us and Them that Richard Wright hits number 8 on my list. Okay. Number 7. I briefly considered putting Antonio Carlos Tom Jobim on my list because I really love Brazilian music. I really love bossa nova music from the 60s. Oh my God, do I love that stuff. And I've got a handful of Tom Jobim CDs over here on my racks. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, okay, I'm not listening to that because I like the way his piano sounds or I like the way he plays the piano. I'm listening to that because I like the song. I like that arrangement. I like the other, the Tom and Ellis. I think Tom and Ellis is the name of that. There's a crawl down here that says, if I've got the name wrong, it's this album right here because I don't want to stop and go get it. I listen to this thing regularly because I love the interplay of their voices. But I'm not listening to any of this because I want to hear Tom Jobim play the piano, right? So I did the next best thing. Here at number 7, I've got somebody that I do love listening to the piano, and that is Sergio Mendes. Oh my God, do I love Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66. Are you kidding me? This is their debut album that the actual title is Herb Alpert Presents Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66. Mais que nada. Agua de beber. No, agua de beber. Correct me on my pronunciation of Portuguese down below. The one-note samba. Oh, I mean, we've still got Tom Jobim. He wrote Agua de beber, Agua de beber, whatever that is. He wrote one-note samba, right? He's still on this thing. But this is Sergio Mendes. I love Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66. I could listen to this shit all day long. Fantastic music. Love this. Number 7, Sergio Mendes. Number 6. Okay. I'm going to take a quick sip. Turned into 2 sips. And that was because I needed to fortify myself. This next one is complicated. Rewind that a little bit. The selection is not. I knew that I wanted this musician on my list, and I think this is the appropriate spot to have this musician. It's just that while I love listening to the performance, I'm also drawn to the quality of the singer's voice, and I am drawn to the quality of the songwriting that is involved. But this is one of my favorite musicians just across the board, so I have to include on my top 10 Christine McVie. Are you kidding me? I've got to have Christine McVie on my list. Now, where it gets complicated is I'm trying to decide, okay, what do I hold up here? Do I hold up her ooh, there we go. Do I hold up her solo album from, 86, 80? I don't want to put my glasses on. It's from the 80s sometime. I'll crawl down here if I'm really off. Do I hold this up? It's got some good stuff on it. The Love's Got a Hold on Me, which was the single off of it. Yeah. I'm sitting here trying to focus in, and like I said, I don't want to put my glasses on, so I can't read it. Tiny print. So, do I include this? And I'm thinking that I don't know that I like that because I like the keyboard parts. Then I think, well, maybe I should include more traditional fare. Maybe I should include a Fleetwood Mac album. And if I'm going to include a Fleetwood Mac album, one of the classics. It seems like I ought to be including Fleetwood Mac, even though it's got a stain on the cover, because shocker, spoiler alert, folks. I like Fleetwood Mac better than Rumors. I think this is the better album, and this has two of her my favorite songs of hers. Over My Head and Say You Love Me are both on this thing. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I needed to be adventurous and bold and break out of the expectations that other people have and go with Tango in the Night. Now, excuse me, this is not a better album than Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac just throws this thing down and dances upon its body. It's not even funny how much better Fleetwood Mac overall is than this one. The thing is, when this album is good, it is, oh my God, good. And it has my two overall favorite Christine McVie songs on it. Little Lies and Everywhere. I love both of those songs. They're both on here. So, number 6, Christine McVie. Oh, broke my heart when she passed away. Number 5. I've made I've made no attempt to hide my affection for Joe Jackson. So at number 5, I've got Joe Jackson. For my sample, I'm picking Night and Day because this thing is, it's overloaded with piano. Can't swing a dead cat on this thing without hitting a piano. Not that you would want to be swinging a dead cat. That's a disgusting expression. I'm shocked that I would use it. But this is a fantastic album, and his piano work is fantastic throughout. Number 5, Joe Jackson. Come on. Steppin' Out's fantastic. But if I'm going to pick it would probably be Another World. I really like Another World. And that's a good driving piano song. Breaking Us in Two, also excellent piano work on that. Joe Jackson, number 5. Also, I've made no attempt to conceal my intense admiration for Billy Joel. So coming in at number 4, I've got Billy Joel. I've got The Stranger as my example here, mostly because Scenes from an Italian Restaurant is like a clinic in how to play pop rock piano. Love it. I was tempted to put 52nd Street up as my example because of the whole side 2, stiletto in Rosalinda's Eyes and Half a Mile Away, and it's all wonderful. But I decided to go with The Big Gun instead. Fantastic album. And if we're talking about his piano work, we're talking Scenes from an Italian Restaurant, and we are talking Vienna. Oh, I love Vienna. I love Billy Joel. He's coming in at number 4. Coming in at number 3. One of these days, I may actually force myself to follow through with something that I casually suggest from time to time. Ooh, if I made my list of top 10 favorite just overall musicians, if I made my list of who I think the top 10 best overall musicians are, but yeah, I've made casual references to that before. If I do that, my number 3 here, performer, has got to be considered for that list. Paul McCartney has got to be considered with that to be a contender for that list because the man has musical talent just oozing out of his eye sockets. Similarly, it was a disturbing image. Similarly, my number 3 favorite keyboard player has got to be considered for that list because this guy is just, he is steeped in musical talent. The number of instruments that he plays with mastery is astounding. And of course, I am talking about Stevie Wonder. I've got Intervisions as my example here because it's got Higher Ground on it, which I adore that song, and everything you hear in that is Stevie Wonder. Oh man, impressive. He's an impressive musician. And I love listening to him play. Yeah, Stevie Wonder. I don't need to add anything to that. Number 3. Number 2. Most of the time I do listen to pop rock. I again, make no attempt to hide that. I do occasionally branch off into other areas. I like listening to classical music now and then. I like me some good Beethoven every once in a while. I listen to, okay, every once in a while I listen to old country. I'm not going to listen to modern country. And every once in a while I listen to jazz. I like jazz. I'm not knowledgeable about jazz, but I do like listening to it. And my number two keyboard player is a jazz pianist, and it is, of course, Dave Brubeck. I love Dave Brubeck. I can listen to this stuff all day long. Are you kidding me? I've got time out here because, of course, time out. Or take five, excuse me. Yeah. Short circuit there. But everything about this is fantastic. I love this. I don't know the names of the songs because it's all instrumental, so the titles of the songs don't imprint. But I love the whole album. I love listening to Dave Brubeck. I got more over there, but this is the one that everybody knows. So, Dave Brubeck, number two. But my number one, my favorite pianist, and this is actually, the more I think about it, he's my favorite, like, with a healthy margin. It was not difficult to decide. It was kind of difficult for me to decide between Stevie Wonder and Dave Brubeck, right? Because, oh man, these are both guys I think that, people 100 years from now are going to know who they are in a way that I don't know 100 years from now people are going to know, some of the rest of the folks on my list and most of the stuff that I listen to on a regular basis. But this number one slot was not hard at all. Hands down, my favorite keyboard playing musician is Ben Folds. Oh, there we go. You can see that. I've picked Way to Normal as my example here because we've got some wonderful piano songs on here. Hiroshima is good. Hiroshima, depending on how you want to say it. Cologne is great. Errant Dog is, I think, funny. Effington is good. Free Coffee. Oh, Free Coffee. There's a lot of good piano work on this thing. But I could have picked any of his albums. I could have picked the first Ben Folds 5 album or Whatever and Ever Amen. I could have picked Rock in the Suburbs. Blanked out on the name of that one for a second. Could have picked any of them. They're all fantastic, and he plays like a madman, and I love listening to him play. He is one of the few musicians who can play an arena by himself at a piano and satisfactorily entertain the whole crowd. I've seen Randy Newman do it, and I've seen Ben Folds do it, and I don't know of anybody else who will. Fantastic. I love Ben Folds' piano playing. So those are my 10 favorite keyboard players, piano players. I originally almost had Isaac Hayes on the list just so I could say organ again. Missed it by that much. So those are my 10 favorite keyboard players. Who are yours? Drop that comment down below. I always love hearing from you. If you enjoyed the video today, I would appreciate it if you'd click the like button. And while you're down there, if you have not already done so, go ahead and click the subscribe button. That would be nice. If you do subscribe, click the bell for notifications. It makes a difference to the YouTube people, so I would appreciate it. Thanks again for watching today, and I hope that the rest of your day is, that was my last one, hope that the rest of your day is gratifying. See you soon.